Hello and welcome back to our video series on your PLR makeover. Now in this video we're going to cover some things for you to think about as to whether or not you're going to need or should get a domain name and web hosting. Now this information may be one of the most overlooked and yet potentially most profitable parts of your PLR makeover process. When determining if you're going to want or need a domain name or web hosting, you should consider a couple of different things. Are you planning on reselling the PLR products as they are, just as you had purchased them? Or are you more into the product creation aspect of them and then resell the newly created and unique product that you created from those PLR products you purchased? Well, if you're just planning on reselling, then really in that case you may consider not spending the time nor money to get and maintain a domain name and web hosting. Now you can use one of several free online file storage services that you can then just upload your PLR resale items to and simply send those links to the buyers after you've been paid. Now, I would highly suggest against that idea for several reasons, but mainly because it lacks the look of professionalism. And getting a domain name and web hosting is very inexpensive, plus it can be easily the foundation that you can begin to build your online business from. Now, as far as if you decide to go on the cheap route, which, hey, some folks you just got to do that because you have nothing to start with, or you don't want to sacrifice what little you do have on something that you just really don't know that much about. Now, that being said, as soon as you start generating income, having started from the cheap, be sure and stick some money into getting a domain name and web hosting service. But I would be remiss if I did not at least point out the means in which you can start off on, well, cheap. I hate that word cheap, but in this case it's going to fit. So just simply do a search for free online file storage. There's several of them in here. And of course, you can always use the example I had provided you in the prior video. Head up to the forums I had suggested and just do a post in there for a beginner or somebody just starting off. And what would be your suggestion on using a free online file storage system? Thing is, though, is that it might cost you the look, the appearance, the lack of professionalism that I'd mentioned. And it's so much easier to use a web hosting service from your own site. But again, sometimes you just got to start cheap, and this is the good way to do that. Remember, though, that along with this will come a lot of times the advertisements from these services, because that's how they generate their income. If they're free to you, they got to get their money somehow, and usually it's going to be from the advertisements that they tag on to your links. So consider that as a possibility. Now then, as far as getting a domain name or web hosting, again, use those forums, post those questions in there. You'd be surprised as how quickly and how many different responses you're going to get from people that have had personal experiences. Now, my personal experience, being somewhat biased, but again, using these forums, you get more of an unbiased opinion. But being somewhat biased, I use Namecheap to get my domain names. And if you look here under domain name registration, what do you got? 16 million. And on the first page, Namecheap does not show up. So not necessarily is the best service going to be on the first page of your Google search. I just want to point that out to you. And I'm not by all means just saying that Namecheap is the best, but for me it is. The one thing that I would offer as far as information to go on when deciding on a domain name registry, and that is the ease of transfer, the cost. These are just a couple of things. Remember that as far as the cost, for example, Network Solutions is a great company. Theirs is $10 a year because these costs are annual. GoDaddy, which is one of the more popular ones, not necessarily the best, but one of the more popular, is $7 a year. The difference is only $3 a year. So just because one is more popular than the other, Network Solutions might be better all around. So the difference of $3 per year is negligible considering what you might get in service. So definitely you want to consider that. And again, post that in those forums. Which is the easiest to transfer? Which domain register would you suggest because the ease of transfer? For example, with Namecheap, it costs me, it says $9 a year, $9.95 a year, but there are places online where you can go to get coupons where it would reduce the cost to $8.81. And you can do a search for coupons for Namecheap and come up with several options. But with Namecheap, it is very easy to do a transfer from the Namecheap to your domain, and I'm talking instantaneous. I have other domain names registered with 1&1, for example, that can take as much as 3 days before it is active on my new web hosting service. So again, these are just a couple of things to consider. Web hosting, I ought to mention this as well. You've got anywhere from free to, as far as resellers, you can get upwards of $75 a month. Dedicated, $100, $200 a month. But for what we're talking about, just starting off, anywhere from $2, $3 to $25 a month for basic shared hosting. And the free, I would stay away from unless, of course, you just have to, in which case I would suggest this be the company you check out. that's 000webhost.com. One of the better free web hosting services because there are no ads or banners, because most all of the other free web hosting services you're going to come across are going to be inundating your site with ads and banners. Plus, this one also has cPanel as your control panel, two major pluses for any free service. And as soon as you start generating income, maintain this one because, hey, you can't beat the cost, but do most all of your business from your paid web hosting service. Again, that's my suggestion. And you've got, again, from the Host Monsters or HostGators or Bluehost or Lunar Pages, all of which are great and fantastic, and frankly I use all of them currently for other reasons, but all the way up to the big dogs, what I consider the big guys insofar as internet marketing web hosting services. That is the kiosk.ws, and you can get them at this URL here, www.kiosk.com, and Third Sphere. Two fantastic web hosting services. These are owned and operated by marketers, or the marketer mentality, if you will. So if anybody were to try to throw a wrench into the works as far as complaining about your means of marketing, for example, then they will not shut you down at a drop of a hat. They will give you the opportunity to voice your side of the story, whereas some web hosting companies, which will remain nameless, they will not give you that opportunity. They will simply shut you down at that drop of a hat, as I had mentioned. And again, if you were to go to those two forums I had mentioned in the prior video, Warrior Forum and Digital Point, and ask there, what is a good web hosting service for marketers, you're going to get, again, an unbiased opinion, and more than likely several of them for you to make a better decision on who to go with yourself. And again, I've got the low end to the high end. You've got the free online storage services, and you've got the free web hosting services, and you've got the what I would consider the AAA top of the line web hosting services. Now, one thing too you might want to consider as far as these web hosting services, prior to getting a domain name, some of these web hosting companies will offer you a free domain name if you use their service. So you might want to check into the free domain names through these web hosting companies first before you sink money into buying your domain name. Again, just something to consider and things to look for whenever you are posting those questions on the Warrior Forum or the Digital Point Forum. So that's the main thing I wanted to go over with you in this video, was to enlighten you or to give you more information concerning the on the cheap means of getting started, whether it's a free online file storage or a free web hosting service. You still want to, once you've got some income flowing, you still want to get a domain name and a reputable and quality web hosting company, because that's the foundation of your soon to be growing business online. That's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thank you much for watching. Have a great day.